Hello, and welcome to the More Cheese Less Whiskers podcast. And today we're talking with Michael Barrett right here in Florida. And Michael has a very, very interesting situation that I think a lot of people find themselves in. We started out with a conversation about how do you select a single target market and how do you choose a niche? That's really where everybody seems to point in the direction of the very first step when you're taking on a new marketing venture. And we had a really great conversation about that, but then turned into a conversation about why is that difficult for people. And so we started talking about his Kolbe Index, which was very insightful. And then we talked about Myers-Briggs as a personality indicator. And it really came down to a conversation about getting these baseline things about what do you really want for your life first? What is a perfect life for you? And so I think you're going to enjoy this conversation if you've ever wondered, is this really what I'm supposed to be doing here? So we had a couple of technical difficulties. It's a stormy day here, so we got cut off a couple of times, and but hopefully that's all been edited back together seamlessly, and you won't even notice it. So have a great day and enjoy this episode.
Michael Barrett.
Hi, Dean. How are you this morning?
I'm so good. How are you?
I'm great. Looking forward to our conversation.
Well, me too. Where are you calling in from?
Ocala, Florida.
Oh, wow. Okay. So right up the street.
I'm a transplant from Sarasota. I just got here a couple months ago. Yeah. The traffic got too crazy.
I gotcha. Well, yeah, I'm very excited to talk with you, and I love doing these kind of calls. I read a little bit about what you have going on, and it's one of my favorite topics to talk about, picking target markets. So why don't you tell me the whole story here so we can set the stage, and then we can jump off from there.
Well, over the course of the last 15 years or so, I've made an effort to go through a number of different internet marketing training courses. And it seems inevitably that they all go through the process of doing the research and, finding potential targets in interest levels, and then identifying what people are really interested in, and then narrowing it down to a niche. And I'm really good at research, and I'm really I have a fairly diverse background in experientially and professionally, and I have a lot of interests. So it's easy for me to find things I want. But I when it comes down to the instructions in the courses, that consistently they sum it up basically in a one-page instruction of be sure to spend enough time on the niche market before you move on to the rest of the course. Uh-huh. And it's usually my stumbling block, and I think I can't identify why so much, but finding
one of the natural things. I'll start it there for a second because it's a universal thing that when this is where self-awareness comes into a lot of it. And so you sent me your Kolbe score, right? Which was you were 7,274. Is that right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Correct. So meaning you're a 7 fact finder, a 2 follow through, 7 quick start, 4 implementer. And Absolutely. So I'm a 4-4-10-1. And wow. So I look at it that, my whole thing is ideas. I've got all kinds of ideas, right? That's the domain of the quick start, I guess. Now you're being equally strong on quick start and fact finder is really putting you into this non-stop loop of, because you're so low on follow through, you're resistant to follow through, right? When you're looking, and I'll say this, I don't know how much you've really followed the Kolbe or gone deep into it, but for people listening, it's one of the most useful things to really understand yourself, because it's not about you're going to work on your strengths or your work on shoring up your weaknesses. It's having an awareness of your weaknesses. So I know, for instance, that I'm a one implementer, and implementer doesn't mean my motivation to get something done or to implement something. What it means is the actual technical hands on the machinery doing the stuff thing, right? I have no aptitude for that. And so when I realized that and put myself into a position to shine in my strengths while supporting my, what you would call, weaknesses. You don't look at it as weaknesses. I don't look at it as that. It's just that that's not my conative strength. My natural strength is not to get in there and build a prototype or do something with my hands. So when I look at that and became aware of it, it's really about creating an environment that allows you to shine in your strengths, right? So let's look at this podcast as an example. So I'm a 10 quick start, which means that I can think on my feet, that I love ideas, I love seeing connections, I love brainstorming, all of that kind of stuff, right? So this podcast is a perfect example of something that plays into my strengths, because I'm inviting people. I don't have to come up with content for the podcast. I don't have to organize it into a sequential outline or talking points or presentation mode on it. So there's no way to procrastinate it. There's no way to get behind on it. It's synchronous and scheduled. And the first and only involvement that I have in this entire podcast is that this morning I see that Michael Barrett is on my calendar, and I quickly read the notes about what you're proposing that we talk about, and then I show up at the appointed hour, and as soon as we hang up the phone, I'm done with it, because I'm not involved in any of the technical elements of this. I'm not the one who's going to go and get the audio and then figure out how to edit out the interruptions that we had today because of the Wi-Fi going out. I'm limiting my involvement in it to just this portion, what you and I are talking about. So I say that as an example to go down this thought with you of understanding why you sort of get into this perpetual loop, because you don't have a clear winner in the thing. You have 7 ideas, which means you have a propensity for them. You like you like the ideas, and you like fact finding, and you can see how you can get into this. Well, that might be a good market. Let me look into this. Wow, that's very interesting. And you start going down the facts, and then that stimulates other ideas. Well, what about this target market? I could see how that could be a good one too. And then, but you don't have anything that is sort of setting you up to choose one over the other. Does that feel like an accurate?
I can substantiate it with like 30 yellow pads full of written stuff, on different. I have binders and binders and binders of research I've done. Yes, it's exactly accurate.
Because that's what you love to do. You love to, you're feeding your 7 quick start with ideas from all these courses and all these speakers and all these marketers to give you exposure into, well, what could I be doing? And then that prompts ideas that you then shift over to your fact finder mode, which is equally pleasing to you, to go and research this market. And you say, you know what, man, that would be a good market. But then it stimulates more thoughts even, right? There's nobody and no mechanism to take you out of that loop. And why I described my podcast system to you is because I have taken myself out of the loop that's going to stop me from doing it. And so I've set a context for what I'm doing. The context is that, overridingly, our organization, and I say, it's Dean Jackson, the village that is Dean Jackson, is we are single-minded in our purpose for what we're doing with people, that we help entrepreneurs make more money. That's our guiding, overriding thing. Everything that we do is about that outcome for entrepreneurs. And that sets up the opportunity for me to have a wide number of businesses that we help, right? Lots of different businesses. But I've got a system for doing it. And I've got a context that stays the same. The 8 profit activators and the breakthrough DNA process are the operating system, the fixed operating system that I'm overlaying on every business. Every business has a before unit, and every business has a during unit and an after unit. And when we use the proprietary metrics that we have for the diagnostics in any business, we can see in the after unit what is somebody's return on relationship. And when I lay that down on top of their existing business, it's eye-opening for them, because they probably have never divided their business into those 3 components. And they've never thought about how much of their business is specifically coming from repeat and referral business, and what are the metrics to, kind of define the scope that they're doing that at. Like, if they've got, how many clients do they have that yield so much in the after unit? And so all of that is a fixed framework that's universally present that I can overlay on top of any target audience, as long as it's entrepreneurs, as long as it's entrepreneurial, results-oriented businesses, right? So I've set up a scope that is single-minded, but it's also broad enough that it gives me a runway to have many interesting things to do within it,
And the system you created limits your activity in the areas that you're weak at by blocking that out. So
yeah,
that's really brilliant. I need one of those.
Well, that's the thing, right? So that's the thing, is it doesn't necessarily have to be that you pick a very specific target niche. Most people who are coming into internet marketing, if we want to call it that, as their expressed desire is to get into internet marketing, which really is, there's not really anything. I think we can really just call it marketing now, because it's you don't want to define it by the mechanism, any more than we had Dan Kennedy, one of our early guests on the I Love Marketing podcast with Joe Polish. And Dan talked about internet marketing being as silly as defining yourself as a yellow page marketer,
Right.
it's a mechanism. So you're a marketer, and the internet is the vehicle, right?
Well, yes, but I guess I should stipulate there that my interest is in creating information products that based on the things that I like to do and market those. And that I've been stumbling on it for a long time.
Yeah. So tell me what you like to do. Like if you look at it, that one of the first questions that I always ask for people, because by the way, if you're going to overlay my system on this too, the 8 profit activators, guess what profit activator number 1 is? Select a single target market. I mean, it's not that we're all saying this it's just de facto how it has to happen,
No, now let me give you an example. I love coffee. I love coffee immensely,
too.
and I used to have an espresso shop in Seattle at the early stages of that big boom when it hit, and I love it. I've been drinking specialty coffee since 1967.
Wow.
So the question I have, and what I've
How old are you, Michael? How old are you?
I'm 66.
Okay.
And this is kind of like starting my adult life in a way.
Yeah.
That's where I am. But as I look at the coffee market, and I understand the business pretty thoroughly from the, I haven't been a roaster, but I understand the process of green beans and how you mix blends, and I've been on the front lines making drinks for 12, 14 hours a day, 6 days a week. Uh-huh. And I love my coffee in the morning. But the question the difficulty I have with this is, how can I monetize this on the internet? What can I package? And as far as selling coffee, for example, the big problem there is it gets stale, right? So that's a big deal. Now, if I have somebody roast it for me and send it to my clientele, they can steal my customers, right? That's a big problem. And particularly if I start doing a lot of business. And I've seen a lot of things. Anyway, I've tried it up and down in different ways. And one of the things I've thought about is creating a service and kind of incorporating travel with my love of coffee, and my wife, who's an incredible picture taker and, photojournalist in a way, in terms of documenting the experience. And go from all around the country and try coffee out and write about it. All right. I like to write. I like to blog. But nobody, how many times have you gone to a city? It's a new time you've been there. You want a good cup of coffee.
Yeah.
And you can't find it. And you look on Yelp, and they've got all the local McDonald's. Right. But so that is something I really would like to do. I thought about like building an app to, like, this is your coffee GPS deal to get that cup of coffee, right?
Do you know, there is that. Taki Moore told me about an app. He's a real coffee guy. He's got he recommended an app that is exactly what you're talking about, the best coffee in a particular place. And and that's I wish I could remember what the I can't remember what the name of the thing is. I'm just going to ping him and see if he's available.
So what I found about coffee in general, even when I had my customers in my shop, their perception of coffee is exactly what they got used to, right? It might be the coffee they had with Dad after Sunday evening dinner, and they love the smell of that coffee no matter how terrible it is. That's their favorite coffee. So when you get people's opinion on Yelp and reviews, for example, not just Yelp, but any of them, it's a very objective viewpoint, and 9 times out of 10, it's different than what I like, so
right.
That's a problem. But yeah, I've thought about that idea for a long time, and that's one concept. I mean, that's one area I really like.
So part of the thing, when you look at this, and I'll talk about the different models here, right? Because that's what you need to figure out, is a model that will work, And if you're passionate about it, that's awesome. So now you have to start thinking it's the intersection between what you're really passionate about, right? What you're really knowledgeable about, and what people will pay for. Is there a market for it? That's part of marketing, is about establishing that there is a market for something, right? Like a monetizable market. And so you start to think, okay, well, what kind of models could you do? Could you maybe it's a media type of situation where you create a podcast or a video podcast all about the best coffee roasters all over the country. You gather an audience of coffee connoisseurs, and who would be interested in that audience? Who would love to have access to that audience?
My wife.
Right, exactly. But yeah, and then to what end, though?
Yes.
That's where you have to figure is what is the outcome that you're really looking for. Like, I think it's a really interesting game when you start thinking about your life and your lifestyle design as first and foremost supporting the life that you really want, right? Regardless of the market sort of thing, is what's perfect for you? I mean, are you looking to build something that you sell for $100 million? Is a different vision of a life than something that you do for a few hours a day or week, and that you have a nice, enjoyable life.
Yes.
What's the purpose of this?
Well, ultimately, doing what I love to do every day is very important to me in terms of how I use my time now, because I'm finding that time is my most valuable asset.
Yeah.
And the other side of that is I want to, in the short term, say over a 5-year period, recreate a capital base that I can set up as my estate for my kids and my grandkids.
Yeah.
Because I've hit the wall a few times in my experience, and I'm kind of starting over, and I'm starting late. So in the short term, I got to hustle, and I'm willing to work like intensely hard, and focus to accomplish some short-term financial objectives. And once I hit that level that will sustain what I want to do, then I'd like to back off and really focus on having a good time doing what I'm doing. That's kind of it in a nutshell. And I've thought about it quite a bit.
Has that been the pattern of your life so far, or is that a newfound desire? Like, is that what's been your? You've got 40 years of adult kind of life behind you here, and started drinking espresso in 1967. Since you were sipping espresso back then till now, what's been the arc of your life so far? Like, what's been the pattern?
Well, I'm most happy when I'm starting things. when I'm starting an enterprise. And I set up a carbide tooling business in Montana, in my garage, and I built it into a pretty darn good business, and I loved it. I loved the product. I loved my clientele, but part of what I loved was building it.
Yeah.
Getting it going. As far as, and in that scenario, I didn't have to worry about the paperwork, the trail of junk I left behind. I would leave this huge trail of paper behind me, and my staff took care of it all. So I could just go out and innovate and build relationships. And that was an exciting time. And I did really well from scratch. It was a brainchild, and I implemented it into reality. Then later on, I went into the espresso business, and I started with an old broken down shop and no money, and I shoestringed it until they did a full page color write up on us in the Seattle Times on a Sunday in the Sunday Parade magazine.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I went into the food brokerage business, and I was a food broker professionally selling food to food service operations for 6 years, calling on chefs, executive chefs and owners 50 times a week. Mm-hmm. So I'm a foodie. I like food. I like kitchen knives. I like chefs, you know. Right. I got into the real estate investing business. I spent probably $50,000 on seminars and really worked diligently at it. Again, starting from scratch and building it up, and I built some websites around it, and I started doing pretty well. And then I got hammered in 2008. I mean, I got cut in half, and the pieces dropped in the ocean in different places. And but I kept the knowledge. I still love that industry. Yes. I've got several others I've done too, but in those arenas, I've developed a level of expertise, and I understand the pulse of the business, and where I excelled is building things. Yeah. You know, building turf, building sales volume, building a given market area, building relationships, and developing clientele. I love it. I did trade shows. I set up all the booths. We built all the stuff, and I traveled around, and I had a blast. I love doing those things. I also got certified as a workshop facilitator, and I did that for 6 years. And so I think it's a challenge. And now, as far as I think, I get bored after a certain period of time. Once I think that's probably true, right? Like if you're looking. It seems like, is that your pattern, a 6-year loop, a 6-year pattern? Yeah, maybe so. I hadn't thought about 5, 6, 7. Yeah, that's about right. Yeah. And it's probably exciting in the beginning as you're like going full steam ahead on the things. And then what happens to like that the shine comes off that? Like, what is it that, do you get seduced into something different, or do you get sick and tired of what it is that you're doing? Not in my case, not exactly. No, I ran into either partnership issues, financial problems at different points. You know, at critical transition points. Yeah, and it kind of, and I had to start again. Yeah. Now, in the tool business, the coffee business, I would have been happy to stay in either one of those in perpetuity. Yeah. But there's that critical transition point when you hit a period of growth where a lot more capital is required to go to the next step. In those situations, that's been my limiting factor. I didn't have the financial strength to grow it to where I wanted to go. And maybe like in the coffee business, I was really limited by my location. And at the time, Starbucks was building, you know, I don't know how many. You went downtown Seattle at certain times in that time period. There was a Starbucks on 4 corner locations within 2 blocks. I've seen that. It's great. Yeah. So, and they were paying, you know, triple net, and they would go in and they had brokers doing nothing but seeking out those locations for them, willing to pay top bucks. So as an independent that wanted to compete with that, man, the real estate, it was the bugger, because people that were banking $350 a year on a little cart in front of a hospital, when their lease came up, the owner of the hospital would either triple the rent or put their own cart in.
Yes.
So that said, well, I kind of have to buy the building, right? And getting a good location is a real challenge in the coffee business. So that was that particular example. And then, anyway, it's been I guess a capital timing issue at critical junctures.
But part of it, so one of the things, and it's again with this self-awareness, right? That it sounds like in a lot of ways you're very similar to me. I couldn't operate my way out of a paper bag as a business operator, right? And I have no interest in the skills of being a business operator. I have no interest in that. I'm not interested in scaling anything. What I'm interested in, and what I've kind of devoted all of my attention to, is I like getting things what I call scale ready, right? Like I look at myself as a scientist to figure out the scale ready algorithm that makes something work. So I've spent a lot of time in the real estate world, in the residential, real estate agency world.
Right.
And so I have figured out over 32 years all of the big pieces, all the big things that real estate agents want to get. They want to get listings. They want to get referrals. They want to find buyers. They want to convert leads. All of the things that you need to do as a real estate agent, I've really spent my time experimenting, documenting, creating systems that can be turnkeyed so that all the realtors have to do is just install this system and they get the results, right? But I don't have a interest or strength in the business of that. So I've surrounded myself with people who are able to do those things. And that's really, I think, where, you start to look at your role. You might be a really valuable contributor to a team that has the capability to do whatever they're doing, that you could add value as kind of a adjunct, It doesn't, you don't have to be, you can have all of that freedom and get to do the things that you want to do. But imagine it, thinking about it of yourself as being, being sort of almost like a tenured professor or something, No, really. I mean, where you get to do your research, do your stuff, add your value, but it's in the sort of arms of a supportive organization.
Yeah, the reason I laughed is not at the concept you said, but because people in my life have called me the professor over time,
Right.
That's what I was laughing about.
Yeah. Do you know what your Myers-Briggs type is?
My what?
Have you done your Myers-Briggs
No,
type
I haven't.
indicator? Okay. That'd be a good one for you to know, in conjunction with your Kolbe.
Okay.
Because that tells you about what your personality is, right? Your strengths. So just quickly, I think we can do a little type work with you here. So there's 4 basic pairs of things that you are rated on. So there's extroversion or introversion. So you either tend to be more extroverted, which you seem like that's probably what you are, because you seem to like getting out and talking with people. And am I
nice
right
people.
about that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
nice people.
Yeah. So would you say you're more extroverted than introverted?
Yes, I definitely am.
Intuitive or sensitive? The intuitive is that you see the big picture of things. The sensing is that you see details of something. Whether you look for intuitive people tend to think contextually or look at the big picture, the sort of future oriented and the ideas of something. And sensors are more by sensations of things, like the present of things, or the details.
I'm definitely a big picture person. I'm always
intuitive.
Happy, but I am definitely intuitive. But I'm also really adept at the other element of it. But my
I got it.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the T or F, thinking or feeling, that you're sort of either make decisions logically or emotionally, or that you look at, think things through that way, or think things through, or make decisions based on how you feel about things. What would be?
I'm definitely more of an analytic there. I'm like 51 analytic, 49 creative. But I have a strong thinking side in terms of logic and figuring it out.
Yeah. And then the other pair is either a perceiving or judging. And perceiving is open-ended. You like to have options for things. And judging is closed and settled. Like you'd rather have something settled and make a decision about something. I don't think there's any chance that you are a judger based on conversations that we've had. But I think your preference is to have things open, and you kind of go with the flow. And that's my perception. I think that's true. So
I agree with you.
Okay. So then you are what I would say is an ENTP. And that is, I'm the introverted counterpart of that. I'm an INTP, which is the same thing. We're entrepreneurial. We are, left to our own devices, nothing would happen. Right? That's really, no, I'm saying that's the thing, that you're an extrovert, that you're going out, that, you're full of ideas. You love to things, you get things, you love to express your ideas, and you're very convincing in your things and friendly, and people love to be around you. But your, ability to, let's call it, get things done, or to, close something or whatever, is that if you have the opportunity for things to remain open, you prefer to keep seeking, especially given your fact finder quick start dilemma, right? When you couple those things, your quick start and your fact finder, with your, preference for perception, meaning open opportunities, that's a, self-fulfilling loop that, of course, you never make the decisions, because you're not forced into making a decision, and there's no reason to make the decision.
I agree with you, and I got the same feedback from Ed Dale one time. I was thinking, like, experientially, at what point in time did I make decisions, right? And it was almost always when I had to, right? Like, we got to figure out.
That's the thing.
Yeah,
that's the thing, and you're good. That's the thing, is that you're really good in a crisis.
I am.
If there's a real problem, you can go in and you assess the problem and you quickly search for the answers, and you're able to find a solution and implement it to avert crisis. And so I suspect that that's where the thing is, that you're, at 66 now, looking back on it, you can probably see, and I'm just saying this in a clinical way here, that I imagine that there have been ebbs and flows in your financial situation over the 66 years, that you get things going and things get comfortable, and then that starts the path of maybe losing interest in something because you grew it to the point where you reach your level of complexity,
Yes.
And then it sort of starts imploding on itself. And then you got to figure something out.
I hadn't quite thought of it in those terms, but that makes sense what you're saying.
Yeah. And so that, when you look at that, in order for one of the things that is that's helpful in that is to fix something, like I think it would be a really interesting thing for you to find the thing that is going to fascinate and motivate you for the next 25 years. Because that's a really interesting time frame, right? Like, let's get you to 91 fascinated and motivated. Like 25 years is still, that's a long time.
Sure it is.
Yeah. And so when you start to look backwards and you start to think, well, what's been the through line here, right? Like, what have been the things that have been the most important? I was just looking in my journal. Do you journal?
Not specifically, but I write all the time. I do, so.
I would recommend that you journal, that you get a real journal and, start documenting all of this stuff. And I've started this I started this process in 1996. I've got journals that go all the way back to April of 96. Now, even before that, I used to write stuff, but I wouldn't formally keep it in a place, right? I would write in notebooks and things like that, but I never kept any of it or thought of it as a process,
Okay.
And when I look back on all of this stuff, it's this kind of realization, this kind of journal therapy that really helps, shape everything that I've done. I started looking for contexts, and I start thinking, in 1999, went through a process of creating created a program with Thomas Leonard called A Perfect Life. And this was, the thing that we were doing was a perfect life, right? Which means there are 7 billion variations of this, not the perfect life that we were dictating somebody's, what should be the perfect life, but a perfect life, meaning you've got one that's going to be different than mine. Yes. And the linchpin of that was asking the question and really contemplating on the thought to finish the statement, I know I'm being successful when. And you could say successful or happy or, whatever, what's your outcome that you want? Successful is a good term because it leads, everything that encompasses success is that you're both financially successful, that your life is working, that you're, what you would deem as successful. And that when you realize that the only time you can be anything is in the present, right? So it's not that I will be successful. It's not aspirational that this is what I'm moving towards. Is let's define it for how you'll know when you get there, right? I know I'm being successful when. And when I went through that in 1999, that process became the guidepost for everything that I've done for the last 20 years. That was the sort of turning point, And so I answered the question, I know I'm being successful when, by listing out 10 ways that I know that I'm being successful. And so my number one was that I know I'm being successful when I wake up every day and say, what would I like to do today? That to me would be the perfect life, right? A perfect life for me is to wake up with options, lots of things that I could work on. Now, number two for me was I know I'm being successful when my passive revenue exceeds my lifestyle needs. Because that gives you the freedom to have the time freedom to know that I'm not doing something because I have to do something to pay the mortgage at the end of the month.
Yep.
That I've got that freedom to work on what? Now, it wasn't that I don't want to work. I love working. And so my number three was, I know I'm being successful when I'm working on projects I'm excited about and doing my very best work. So I'm challenging myself at the highest level that I'm capable of at that time. Now, my very best work now is different than my very best work in 1999,
Yeah, of course.
I know a lot more. I've had a lot more experience. The opportunities that I get to work on are much bigger because of the track record that I've developed over those 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when I look at that, that as a catalyst for everything that you're doing going forward, that's got to be right first.
Well, it's interesting because I think that those three things have percolated to the top of my prereqs, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, if I'm going to go out and start all over and build this again, I got to do it in a way that I really love. I love it every day, right?
Yes. Yes.
And that's so. I've almost, you can almost quote my thoughts in those three qualifiers that you mentioned, because I've done so many things I didn't like, right? But every time I've done something I like or a product I'm excited about, I just get so good at it. I get so enthusiastic. And I get immersed in it, and I love it. I don't care if I work 16 hours a day, or I absolutely love what I'm doing. And I miss that element. And
there you go. So part of it is that, the linchpin that makes it all work, that makes it possible, is you got to get to a point where the money part is handled, right? That the money part has got to be the first thing. Now, it doesn't mean that you need to get to a big pile, right? Because again, the thing about it is that we're talking about being successful, and that means today right? That when you look at it today, can you be successful? Can you wake up today and say, what would I like to do today? Can you do that? And
the money's the prerequisite for that.
Absolutely.
Situation.
So part of your thinking for today is, I got to get going. Because I've got to pay whatever the next tranche that you need is, right? If you've got to work today to pay for the bills at the end of the month, then that's got to be your first priority. And so you start to think about it is what's the surest way that I can get to that level with the least amount of energy to just the baseline, right? Like when you look at it is what's the minimum effective dose of money that you need to have that sense that, okay, I've got some breathing room here. Not an amount of money, but a monthly amount of money that you need to keep everything on track. That's I don't need to know what that number is, but you need to know what that number is.
Well, yeah, I've been focusing on that recently, and I'm getting a handle on it really solidly. What you were talking about reminds me of Kiyosaki's game, the cash flow game.
Cash flow quadrants, yeah.
Yeah, but the actual physical board game is called.
Oh, I don't know that.
Well, in order to get to the fast track, you have to get out of the rat race.
Right.
And the way you define that is when your passive income exceeds monthly expenses.
Well, there you go. So that's we're kindred spirits on that. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So right now I'm working towards each day that I can do what I want. So
yeah.
It's kind of a nightmare. I feel like a squirrel in a trudgeon. So, but it's getting better. I have to say that it's getting a lot better.
So part of the clues of it are to take an inventory of what do you know right now? What do you know in all of these years that you've been doing so far? What's the best possible result that you could create for someone else? What's the best outcome that you can create? What could be, what is your skill set or ability to do if you didn't have to kind of get involved in the operating of a business? Because there's no ideas in that. That's about disciplined execution. That's for sensing judgers. That's not for us. That's for people who pay attention to details. That's people with high follow through and high implementer and judgers who like to get things settled and make sure that the rules are followed and the system is followed. That's not for us.
Yeah, I don't thrive on checklists.
No. We make checklists. We make them. We don't follow them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh man,
you're just like
Go ahead.
Well, it's like you're running a relay race, a 4-man relay, and you're the best first leg of the relay, but you got nobody taking the baton at the first checkpoint.
It's like you're reading my mind here, man. You're right on target with this. It feels good to be heard for a change, in a way.
Right. Yeah. So I'm just telling you that's got to be the first thing, is to find somewhere where your skills could fit in as a consultant or as a contributor, a team member, something that you're feeding your ideas, your leg into an organization that can take them and run with them. that would be maybe a good place to start, to get to that point where not where you're a full-time employee in something, but getting to a point where you could contribute something that's going to have some long-term stuff that maybe you look at if it could be done with 30% of your time or 50% of your time or whatever it is, that you're giving yourself the baseline stuff is covered so that you can now dedicate the rest of the time to this pursuit, because you're never making the right decisions based on under pressure, where you're making short-term decisions, not that you're patiently building something sustainable over 25 years,
Right. Well, I agree with everything you're talking about, and you're summing me up to the core. I mean, really accurately.
Well, that's I'm one of you. That's it. So that's the thing. It's like I gotta help my people. It's like the thing that I'm just sharing with you that's the thing that's going to make the difference, is to really, really get clear on that. And then job one has to be, just like you described it, get out of the rat race.
Well, it's getting to a point where it's not really optional anymore. I just it's almost to a point psychically where I have to, where I'm going to crack in two and freak out or something. I feel so constrained intellectually and spiritually because I don't like being an operational person. I'm not good at it. I mean, I don't thrive on it. I'm good at it. I don't like it.
Don't beat yourself up. It's okay. Not everybody is that. And that's okay. Because there's a lot of operational people that couldn't come up with an idea if they had to. They couldn't make a checklist. They'd have to follow them, But they're really good at following the checklist. If they know exactly what to do, they're going to complete the mission and they're going to get it done at all costs. And they'll stay late to do it and they'll make sure it's done. But they're looking to somebody to, give them the mission, and so it takes everybody. It takes everybody.
Well, the wheels are spinning.
Tell me how did all this land? Because this has been a delightful conversation, and it's not. I think a lot of people are going to resonate with the conversation that we had today.
Well, I feel in a certain way like I'm talking to somebody for the first time that's really understood me in 15 or 20 years. And which is amazing considering how this is our first interface outside of a brief email, and I mean, I feel like I know you because I read your stuff, but that's not fair to you, right? Your interpretation of what I told you is stunningly accurate, and to a point where I feel a sense of resonance, resonance for the first time in a long time, like I'm finally being heard or something. And
that's great. Yeah,
it feels great, man, because I've thought about these same things myself, but you seem to have coordinated the components in a way that I hadn't framed it before.
That's good. Well, I think I think it would be really, a good next step for you would be to, get yourself familiar with your ENTP. If you just search Google and put ENTP, that'll come up right away. It'll tell you what you'll be like reading all about yourself, and it shows you your natural strengths and how you may kind of foil yourself or how to, look at for those things. And that would be very helpful. And then really thinking through I know I'm being successful when, and then just thinking about taking an asset inventory of your capabilities and where you could add value for someone else. And I say someone else, not even certainly, even if you're going to do it as an entrepreneur, it all comes down to being able to deliver a result for somebody else, right? They're either going to pay you individually to help facilitate that result, or you're going to be paid by an organization to add the value that you can add to them.
Okay. So where do I find those opportunity listings? I want that.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. That's funny. And that's all comes from, knowing what you're taking inventory. You've had all the experience there, that you can certainly see which skills that you have are economically viable and in demand.
Yeah, I think I've done similar stuff many times, but
yeah,
I'm gonna try and approach it this time with limits and parameters on what I'm creating, rather than getting off on the going down the rabbit hole again of creative thinking about the alternatives.
Yes, that's it. I love it. Cool. Well, Michael, it's been enjoyable. Thanks for hanging in with all the technical difficulties, but we got through it. And
we did.
It's a good thing it's not me getting in here to have to weave all this together. That's good.
Yeah. I hear you.
Have a great day.
Thank you. It's been enjoyable. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Michael.
Bye-bye.
And there we have it. Another great episode. Thanks for listening in. If you want to continue the conversation, we'll go deeper in how the 8 profit activators can apply to your business. 2 things you can do. Right now, you can go to morecheeselesswhiskers.com and you can download a copy of the More Cheese Less Whiskers book, and you can listen to the back episodes, of course, if you're just listening here on iTunes. Secondly, the thing that we talk about in applying all of the 8 profit activators are part of the breakthrough DNA process. And you can download a book and a scorecard and watch a video all about the 8 profit activators at breakthroughdna.com. And that's a great place to start the journey in applying this scientific approach to growing your business. That's really the way we think about Breakthrough DNA, as an operating system that you can overlay on your existing business and immediately look for insights there. So that's it for this week. Have a great week, and we will be back next time with another episode of More Cheese, Less Whiskers.